Here she lay panting, quivering. Her feet were tender, and there was a new rip on her belly from the rocks. Wet, she showed her wolf-like physique, the slender, sneaky profile of her face, the alert, damp fan of her tail. Her coloring was dark, her thick fur stippled, and her tongue mottled, like a chow's, but her slender skeletal underpinnings were those of a wild creature, fox or coyote, something nocturnal and sly. Her owner had liked that about her, the grateful and frightened girl whose appearance daunted, her loyalty and love that of something rescued from cruelty. She had lived on garbage, she had slept with her eyes open. She was strange-looking, skittish, intimidated, and intimidating. She answered to Max. On her neck she had worn a collar, but now it was gone, torn from her when the car flew off the mountain and rolled over the talus and into the trees below, or snatched away in the turbulent trip down the stream. In the flesh of her neck she had had a surgical procedure to install a microchip that identified her. Some shelters, some veterinarians knew to scan lost animals for those. Others didn't. She lay on the rock, cleaning her wound, her eyebrowed forehead nudging stubbornly, her teeth briefly bared so as to gently pull, precise as tweezers, at something in her fur. Glass, perhaps. It had left tiny cuts on her tongue before she'd begun nipping it out with her teeth. She paused to glance around, holding absolutely still. Water, trees, wind, diving swifts, and wary deer, gathering night. She had undomesticated origins. The dark did not worry her. Upstream, at least 2 miles, a man's voice continued reading, sonorously, as it had for an hour now, a curiously old-fashioned voice, overly dramatic, an actor from the Continental School, reciting for the 3rd time the opening chapters of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. The tape reversed, the story continued, repeated. The car's driver had been trying to improve her mind. Through New Mexico, she'd been listening to National Public Radio and had been fascinated to hear yet another installment of a story from her old hometown, from her own long-ago adolescence, where a serial killer, dormant for decades, had once again been taunting the media. A killer who had hovered on the periphery of her formative years, his first victims having been neighbors of hers. Strangers, newcomers, but neighbors nonetheless. Their house, a few doors down from hers, with the precise same floor plan. Her uncle, who lived with her then, had been among the many men in the neighborhood initially considered a suspect, fingerprinted, interrogated, eyed uneasily. Until the killer struck again, elsewhere they'd all been wary of one another in the vicinity of Edgemore and Murdoch streets. Now, the radio said, he had made another public overture. He had been doing it on and off for the last few months. The woman felt a prickling pride in being from the city where he had killed people, the curious emotion of by proxy notoriety. Only after the radio signal fizzled completely, somewhere within the Navajo Nation, just after her second accident, had she been reduced to the book on tape. It was an effort to attend to the story, its teller so sinister with foreshadowing gloom, its language archaic, the syntax unnecessarily convoluted. Plus, she kept suffering the surprising sensation of the truck, from nowhere, jarring her when he clipped her car. A recurrent jolt thereafter, a flash of heat in her sternum, her bare foot leaping briefly from the pedal. Her daughter was reading this book. She attended boarding school in the East, and the driver, the mother, wished to impress the girl come Christmas. She wanted badly to make up for what she had not taken seriously earlier in her life, which was also what she was now, against intense teenage resistance, insisting that her daughter take seriously. Affording tuition, 15-year-old Caddy had let her know after orientation did not put them in the same class as her classmates. "Give it a shot," the mother had said. "That's all I'm asking." "Okay," said Caddy, "but I don't want to." The car in which the woman had been traveling, the car she had handled so heedlessly today, was an expensive one, its interior designed to protect its passengers no matter the external damage, the vehicle boasting its own protective cage. 2 months ago, it had delivered her and Caddy to Vermont, to the quaint village that held the esteemed school. The mother had driven back across the country alone then, alone and lonely. She had taken this trip out of loneliness too, but in the opposite direction, and without particular destination. She and the dog had traveled across Texas yesterday, stopping in El Paso for the night. Tempted after a few drinks, she had refrained from dialing her daughter's cell phone. She'd made that mistake the last time she called Vermont. Then today, sober, she couldn't think what she'd say to the girl. She had crossed the state of Texas yesterday as if to be done with it. Today she appeared to have the same agenda with New Mexico, traveling through and out of the Rocky Desert, so long, and into Colorado, climbing above 7,000 feet, passing signs announcing the Continental Divide, ascending. The temperature had ranged from 95 to 26 degrees in the course of the journey, its decline in direct proportion to the car's progress north and up. Maybe she would make it her mission to drive through every state, say goodbye to each as she exited. The animal had yipped when she caught the new air circulating in the cabin, wind that had passed over and brought with it glacier and pine, the scent of falling yellow leaves. She had shoved her snout at the kennel's clasp, clicking her clever teeth at the latch, and her owner had reached back to free her, simultaneously cracking a back window so that the animal could further enjoy the mountain air. The car steered momentarily by knees. The dog wouldn't have perceived the alpine vistas, the purple mountaintops iced with snow, blue spruce and blonde aspen. She might not even have registered the sharper curves, the way she slid on her padded bed inside the cage, or she wouldn't have complained. But something in the air had alerted her, alarmed her, and she'd thrust her nose through the bars, madly licking the driver's hand. Frustrated, the woman had released her seatbelt, and the car, always on call for such foolish maneuvers, sounded its nagging chime. The curve was no more dangerous than others, but there was neither shoulder nor railing, and the drop beside it precipitous. The mystery and whim of the highway engineers, who ran miles of sturdy guardrails in just such precarious places, and then, without obvious reason, left a section open. Opportunity, break, entry and access to the yawning firmament. The car had gone over without skid marks, directly into the laps of barrier, then rolled long ways, head to toe, rather than side to side. Its roof had peeled back on one revolution, and on the next the windshield had landed in the driver's lap, a sheet of sparkling pebbles, like chainmail. Her neck had been broken during the first tumble, her arm flung over her head by centrifugal force, the fingers snared by the sheared metal moonroof rim. The dog had been saved by the doubleness of her enclosure. Inside the kennel, inside the car's venerated metal egg. At the bottom of the hill, the vehicle landed on its wheels, finally at rest, not hidden from the highway, but not in a location where anyone would be looking. After all, it was the peaks in the distance, the wide-shouldered majesty of Mount Sunshine and Wilson, brilliantly snow-capped against the purple sky, somehow more vibrant than ordinary three-dimensionality, as if accompanied by the tonal shimmer of a clanged bell. There, with a vague shrugging of blue clouds, golden beams radiating as if from a godly crown, simmering red sun sinking behind. To encounter it was to shiver with pleasure and awe, overcome by beauty. Why would anyone glance down?